account?
So our account is a Google one, and
Okay.
And at the beginning, when they created, it was a Sonar project, and I saw that the other day, and they succeeded on changing our name. And at the beginning, when they created, it was a Sonar.
Okay. Yeah, a little bit of feedback there. Hopefully that straightens out.
Yeah, no, it's the stream was starting.
Okay.
Browser. So okay.
Take it away.
Yeah, I'm just going to tweet this just in case someone wants to join, and we can start. Tweet. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I'm going to review the connector Puppeteer. I think that finally it's done, or at least in a state that I like, and that I think that we can merge, even though Windows is still not passing. So first thing first is like we have a new folder, connector Puppeteer, follows the same structure as the other ones. And we have I've tried to split the code in this one a bit more than in the others. In the others, it was a bit of a spaghetti code that was like, as soon as we find an issue, we're trying to fix it in the same file. And well, we didn't have that much experience with the connectors. And those are probably the first files that I wrote for this project like 2 years ago. So I think that I've improved a bit since then. So so we have the connector and then the different events. I think that the most important part is probably going to be the life cycle and launcher, at least the part where I want to start. So there is something interesting with our project is that we run, as you know, quite a few thousand tests on CI. And the way Puppeteer works is when you create a new Puppeteer instance, it creates a new browser, or you can actually tell it to connect to another browser. But as soon as you exit the process, it's going to kill that browser if you've launched it initially. So that didn't scale very well with our tests. Like we couldn't be creating like new instances of Chrome for absolutely each test. I requested to have a way to avoid that, like having a detached flag or something like that, but the conversations are still going, and I didn't want to wait for that. So we actually had to bypass that limitation. So it is the main entry point for lifecycle. Launch is only used from connector. But the way we are doing it is when we go to launch, we have a log. We want to start browsers or connect to our browsers and close tabs or close the browser atomically, even if there are multiple processes. Like we are going to do it that atomically, because if not, we had like concurrency issues and or race conditions, and that was a bit headache. So that needs to be atomic. So we log. We are going to get the browser info. We are going to try to see if there is a browser instance that is already running in the system where we can connect to. So if we go to the definition, by the way, is the size enough, or do you want me to open it a bit more to make it bigger?
Oh, no, this is fine.
Okay. So basically, get browser info, what it's going to do is just look for a file, a well-known file, which is browser.info, and then parse it, and it's going to have a WebSocket endpoint. It might exist or it might not exist. So it's like we try, we see it. If it's there, perfect. We are going to return that information. So let's go back to launch. So now we have the current info, what we believe is the most up-to-date information. So we are going to try to connect to that browser using the current info that we know and the options that the user has passed. It's like options can be like if we want to be like the wait until and things like that. We'll see it later. If that succeeds, then we unlock and we return the connection. The connection is going to give us a browser instance and a new tab for the connector to use. So if everything works, we unlock, we return, perfect. If it fails, it means that the browser info was probably a leftover and that the process was killed and the file wasn't properly deleted. So we are going to delete it, and then we are going to start a new browser. We are going to write information for the next processes that are coming. we are going to unlock, and then we are going to return the connection, which is again a browser and a page. And if it fails, everything fails, it's like, okay, there is a problem launching the browser, we unlock and we throw an exception.
Okay, so I think it might be nice to just put a comment up at the top of this explaining the few different states we expect we might enter into this from.
Okay.
Otherwise, looks good.
Okay. Okay, so we have this, and then yeah, we can go to probably like connect to browser, and then start browser. Actually, let's go to start browser first, and then we can go to connect browser. Then we have a start browser. This is something specific that we do. This is the touch mode I was telling about. This is something specific for us. And that is the only reason why we are using like this type, lifecycle launch options, which is basically Puppeteer launch options plus the touch option. And that was the issue I had for the last couple of days because I forgot to pass the touch option after the refactoring of the configuration. So if it's the touch, then we are going to call start the touch, get the browser, and then once we have the browser, we get the pages. And Puppeteer has this behavior where it automatically starts with a blank page. And so what we do here in this piece of code is basically reusing it. It's like, if there is already a page, and I know that I started the browser from scratch, it's like, let's reuse that tab instead of creating a new one. And if not, if there is already pages in there, it's like, let's just create, or if there is no pages, let's create a new one.
Okay. Cool. Can we drill down on start detached?
Yeah, that start detached is the interesting piece. So start detached, what is going to do is create a separate process that is completely detached of this one that is actually going to launch Puppeteer on its own. And that's launcher TS. So let me go here, lifecycle. Let me minimize this part. So we spawn process exec path to get node, launcher.js, which is the compiled version of this one. We want it to be detached. And the reason we want it to be detached is so we can end the test on our side, but we don't close Puppeteer. And then we just do all the piping, and we establish a channel to pass configurations. So what we do is send the options, and we have an on message here. And yeah, on message, final options, browser. Once we know that the process has been created, we use Puppeteer connect to connect to the WebSocket, which is the final options that should come from here. And then we do all the unref and disconnect of the process, so we don't hang on it and we don't wait, and it can die on its own.
So who's providing browser info in this case?
So browser info is coming back from the process. So if we go here, we have Puppeteer code, we start, we do Puppeteer launch options, which are the options that we are sending from here. So they are serialized and they come from here. We get them, we get the browser, we subscribe to the disconnected, and then once the browser has started, we send another message back, which is the browser info.
Okay.
And that's the one that we use to connect. And then final options is the browser info that is coming from here. We have the options that came at the beginning, and then, yep.
So that's not, let's see, is that typed in that context?
Final options?
The process.send, because that really would take an any, right? In theory, you can pass whatever you want across it.
Yeah. Yes, that's part of the Node.js process.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there is a way to make it typed or not.
Not directly, but we could have a helper around it so that we call, so that we can enforce our own types.
Mm-hmm.
if we want to make sure that we're only calling it with specific parameters. Because we extend this in the future, this becomes a point where we might run into something where we could make a typo and we're not going to catch it.
Yeah, I don't think that we are going to extend it, because the only purpose of this is just to start Puppeteer in a different process that we can detach from it.
And I think the other benefit that we potentially get from that is, it wasn't clear to me that browser info was going to contain browser WebSocket endpoint.
We could.
And there's like, if I'm looking at this right here, it's hard for me to know where to look to find that.
We could do a Puppeteer options.
Yeah, even that would be helpful.
Yeah, the thing is that in here, probably a comment is like browser info. Browser info is going to have the browser.js endpoints. Since the comment is there. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just adding the type annotation to the parameter, I think helps quite a bit, because I can now hover that browser info and I'm going to see what it has. So I don't even know if the or see what it's. Yeah, I guess I'd have to drill down.
Launch options can have like many different things. So.
Oh, I see. So that's broader than just the WebSocket endpoint.
Yeah. Or I can actually type it to.
Yeah, I might do our own type then, even if you export it from your launcher TS.
Yeah, no, I have one which is browser info, which is exactly this. So.
Okay, yeah, I like that better.
Okay.
And then you don't need the comment. We're being very clear about what we're expecting there.
Okay.
And then stylistically.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot this one. This one is from before that one. Please don't kill me. Okay, let me change that. Okay, typing without a thumb is complicated. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, and all of this, the unref, disconnect, and all of that is the mambo jumbo for not having a reference to it, so we can be clean. Started that. So this covers this path. So by this moment, we have the browser, and then we have the browser, we are connected to it, and then it's when we decide to do all the things with the pages or not, like reuse one or create a new one. If we don't want to start the touch, meaning that we have full control of the browser and it's going to be killed after we finish everything, then we just use the regular Puppeteer launch with the options that we've received from the connector, and we continue. So yeah, this covers start browser. Then connect to browser is pretty similar to the code that we've seen about reusing the connection coming from launcher. So we have, I'll change this. We have a socket, and then we just connect to it, and then we get a new page. And in this case, we don't need to do all the guessing if, like, do we have to reuse a tab or not? In this case, we assume that the browser has already created, someone else is using it, so we are just going to create a new page just for us, because we don't know if there is another process using any of the other tabs.
Okay.
Okay, so let me change that. Actually, I can do this.
Browser info only contains browser WebSocket endpoint?
Yes, at the beginning it had more information because that came from the Chrome connector, and it also had a PID, and I was trying to do something clear with the PIDs and trying to kill the right one and things like that. But at the end, it's like I just trim it that it only has that.
Okay, and you were saying you don't think it's likely we would extend that in the future?
I don't think so, because Puppeteer has a really nice API for everything.
Okay.
All the PIDs that we get from Puppeteer sometimes are not for the main process, are for the tabs and things like that. So that's the only thing that we might be getting. I want to.
Because yeah, then my only question would be, should we just drop the object and pass the WebSocket endpoint directly, both here and with the other piece of code we were looking at earlier? And the object's nice if we think we might extend it in the future, but if we know it's always only going to be the WebSocket endpoint, it seems like an unnecessary wrapper. But I mean, I understand why it was there in terms of how the code originally formed, but
yeah. I think it makes it easier when we are writing it into the file and then reading it and serializing and all of that.
okay.
So, I mean, now that it's working, I wouldn't touch it.
That's fine. I don't feel strongly about it. It's just
okay. Then let's continue the conversation with some other points.
Okay.
Okay, so we are finally connected. We return the browser and the page that needs to be used. Yep, and I think that's pretty much like all the start part. Then we have like write browser info, which is serialization into the file. Get browser info, which is reading, log and unlog, that we are using files to log. Yep, and then the only part remaining in lifecycle is the closing part. And yeah, it receives a browser and a page. And sometimes the browser can be disconnected or not exist. So this is just a fail-safe, just in case. Again, we want to be logging when we are doing these operations, because if we start closing a browser at the same time that there is another test or another process that is trying to create a new page, we'll have problems where we're in the middle of a test and suddenly we are just closing the browser and hell rains. In this case, we have browser page, we get the number. If there is only one left, that means that it's us. So we delete the browser information because the next process will have to create a new instance, and we close the browser. Otherwise, we just close the page. The reason why I'm not closing the page directly, even though in Windows, when you close the last page, it closes the application, and I think that in Linux is the same, is just because on non-headless mode in Mac, the process keeps alive, even if you close the last page, and you need to manually close the browser. This doesn't happen on headless, but yeah, that was another interesting bug that I had in going on.
Let's put a comment there.
Okay. Works for you?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And at the end, we unlock, so the next process can start or create a new tab or do something else.
Yeah, no, that was just one of those, you explain it to me, I go, I won't remember this the next time I look at this code, so.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. But I mean, it kind of makes sense like to close the browser if there is only one tab, but yeah, it's like, why not just close the tab? So many hours wasted with that bug. Okay. So that was that's the most intricate part and the one that is most different to the other connectors. Let's go to the constructor. Well, in this case, this is the only connector that actually has a schema and actually has a type, a type for it. We were talking about automatically generating this on TypeScript, but in this case, I really need it right now, so I manually did it. We can probably improve that in the future. But I really needed the types in this case because we'll see now.
Yeah, that's fine for this PR. Maybe leaving it to do might be nice, just so we remember that.
Okay. Do you have the
should stay in sync, right? If not nothing else, keep this in sync with schema.
Yeah. Do you want me to reference also?
I'm gonna say, yeah, we have a bug on GitHub to auto-generate this already, don't we?
The schema and yeah. You remember the number?
I'm gonna try to look it up here.
Okay.
If I manage to get it, I'll.
Because we had two, right?
Yeah. 1 second.
Yeah, we have 1628 and 1594.
Well, you beat me to it.
Okay. I can share the screen here. So it depends of if we want to go from types to schemas or schemas to types. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we've looked at this before, well, we know elsewhere in the project we have to go from schemas to types, because in certain places we're getting the schemas, they're not schemas that we wrote, they're schemas we're getting from elsewhere. And so if we're going to have to go that route, that may make sense to do here too. That said, I think it's a little easier, at least from my biased perspective, to author the TypeScript first, but I know it's not quite as expressive as the schema.
Yeah. I'll just link forward to both issues in the comment and call it a day. And then when the moment arrives, then we can decide. So 1594 and 1628. 1628. Okay, so for the schema, I think I can close this one. Maybe do this a bit bigger. The things that the user can configure are the browser to run. Right now is Chrome, Chromium, and Edge. And Edge depending on the platform, because and obviously it's Edge based on Chromium. Right now it's only Windows 10, so we are using a util that I created a while ago called Chrome Finder that is going to do all the prioritization. We can go through it again if you want, but if not, it just accepts the browser, and then it's going to do it's going to search in well-known folders depending on your platform, and then return the executable if it finds it. And if you don't pass a browser, then it's going to use a default one. I think that the priority starts with I don't know if it was Chrome or Chromium, but yeah, anyways. Then we have the touch option that we just saw, headless to run, headless, ignore HTTPS errors, and wait until are properties that come from Puppeteer, but I thought that they were important enough to be at the top level instead of bury them under Puppeteer options. So just for making it easier for the user when they are configuring it, because usually you are not going to go like deeper into the configurations. There are a few things like changing the executable path, like putting it by hand, or what was the other one? I don't know, but there are some other obscure options that I don't think that are that popular. So if the user needs them, then they can use the Puppeteer options. Then we get to the constructor. By default, our wait until is going to be network idle2. I think that's a good approach for like real websites. Network idle2 is an option where there is at most 2 active network requests in the last 500 milliseconds. And taking into account that in most of the websites there are analytics and things like that, I think that that's a good balance to know when the page is mostly ready.
Yeah, and you were mentioning earlier that for our test suite, we'd probably override this to network idle 0.
Yes, although I mean we are loading locally and the test suite passes, but yeah, probably it's a good idea to change it to that. So we can actually do it in here. Wait until oops. Okay, back to no, this is not the one. This one. Okay, and then the options that we are storing are actually two Puppeteer options. Oops, I have here. So as I said, there are a few of these options that are like coming from Puppeteer, and sometimes we have to transform some of those to more. So this is the method. So if it's headless by default, we don't have a headless on or off by default. We are going to look into if we are running in CI or not, if you don't set that parameter. So if you're running in CI, we are going to assume that you want to be in headless mode. And if you're running from your desktop, then no. So like we are going to have visual. Then the executable path depends on the browser that you are going to choose. So if it's Chrome, Chromium, or Edge, we are going to use get installation path. That it's the Chromium Finder util I mentioned before. We pass the browser, and if not, we are going to use the default one that this util provides us. Then there are a few other things that we need to do with the touch, which is not handle any of these interruptions. And ignore HTTPS errors is the same as Puppeteer, but I was looking into the issues that they had, and it looked like sometimes there are errors with certificates, and the way to avoid those is to enable this. So I linked to that issue. I had some similar issues to the ones mentioned there, and the moment I enabled this, they stopped appearing. I don't know if it was a specific this or something else, but
okay, sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Then we have the top level options that have been transformed, and we merge them with Puppeteer options. In this case, Puppeteer options has precedence over the other ones because the assumption is like if a user has modified or has the Puppeteer options property, they know what they are doing and they want to override or to test something. So yeah, we are going to just combine them, the ones that are missing. Then we debug them and we return them. And these final options are the ones that we are going to pass into launch. And that starts into public in collect. So we have, this is the entry point. So we have now the connector has started, and now we are ready to start analyzing. So webhint calls the collect method. We have initiate.
Sorry, I was gonna, if you jump back to collect for a second,
Yep.
It's returning a promise of any.
Do I have it? Connect. Where do I have it? Oops. Yep.
I say, do we? I don't think we actually return anything out of there, do we?
No, it should be void.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now we can dig down and initiate. That had just caught my eye. Was all.
No, that's fine. I mean, yeah, yesterday I had so many problems with a couple lines that I left there that shouldn't be there. So yeah, we can remove them, the better.
I mean, like the one for evaluate right above it makes sense because we don't know at all what we'll get back. That could be anything. So. Okay.
So initiate, we validate that the target that we want to analyze is a right one. So basically HTTP or HTTPS, that's what his regular protocol does. And then we launch the browser using lifecycle and with the options that we've created previously in the constructor. And then we store the browser and the page. Then we emit we are going to start analyzing. We add the listeners that to Puppeteer that we are interested on. Those are errors like error, page error, all the network related ones, and that's about everything. Those are the only ones that for now we care about. I'll go into the network ones later once we finish with collect. We are going to deal with those.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so we are listening to a network. More output. Then we navigate using the wait until option that the user set before, or the one that we had by default. Once it's navigated, we have the final URL. Navigation is complete. We want to stop listening to network requests because sometimes we still have like heartbeats and things like that that keep getting processed, and we don't care about those.
Yeah. Question for you. Do you think we should mimic that wait until behavior in some of our other connectors? I was thinking specifically the browser extension. I mean, we have the network traffic we're watching for. We could definitely mimic the same implementation. And so we could support it.
Yeah, that would be great. I really like that one, way better than the wait for. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna file that as an issue.
There are a few, so if we want to have the same, so let me see. Let me show you the values that they have. So it's like load, DOM content loaded, network idle 0 and network idle 2. And I think that the Puppeteer options also accepts an array of these, not only the string, but also an array. So I don't know if it's like the first one to be fired or something like that. I haven't dig into the documentation. In our case, we are only accepting the string. But yes, having them in the other ones, it will be pretty cool. And then we can even do the same way that we did with ignore HTTPS error. We can make it like a common property of all connectors. Okay, we stop listening to the network. We process the target, and then we emit the scan. Now let's go to process target. Okay, let me see if I remember the wait for target. What was this exactly? Yeah, this was a race condition where the body wasn't yet ready and we reached to that moment. So we actually need to make sure that we actually have something to analyze in this case. Process target. We get the HTML of the page. We create the HTML document using the original payload of the target request. We process all the pending network requests. And I didn't mention this earlier, but as you know, we are waiting. We try to link network requests to elements in the DOM that might have requested them, like, okay, this JavaScript download was triggered by this script tag or this CSS or this image and such. So we need to wait until we have the full HTML to do that association. So we process all the pending requests that we might have received and queued up. Then if we are running in headless mode, we force the download of the favicon because Chromium headless doesn't do it. And then if the target was HTML, then we are going to do the traverse and then indicate that we can actually evaluate JavaScript that wants to be injected into the code.
Okay, so yeah, any pending requests have already been processed by this point. All right, I gotta step aside for just a second. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, no problem. You're back.
Yep. Okay.
Everything okay?
Yep. All good.
Okay. Any questions about process target?
I don't think so. Let me just give it one last glance here. Let's see. And wait for targets, just waiting for the URL. I forget. Did we already drill down on that?
A bit. So this is actually waiting for the target to be target body to be ready. And this is a workaround I had to do because in some cases we didn't have the body by the moment we get in there. I don't know exactly what was the
context. So we're setting up
Oops.
properties on the class here that someone else is going to use to resolve or reject the promise.
Exactly, and that comes in the on response. So I can probably split this. Okay, and this is in the on response. So if it's the target, and so if we have a target,
and we have a method available in order to
So the
resolve.
method means, so the method means that wait for target has been called. So we have it in there. And so we should continue that.
Okay.
It's not the most obvious thing, but that's the only workaround I could find.
Yeah, no, I think that's okay. But I did want to drill down and see how that worked.
Mm-hmm. Okay, methods for request. Puppeteer has a really nice API, so we get notified when there is a request that is being done. And actually it tells us if it's going to be a navigation, so the target. If it's the navigation request, then we are storing the headers of the first request so we can reuse it when we are like manually fetching resources to simulate the browser and make sure that we are using the same ones. We get the name, the payload that we need to send in the event, and then so name in this case will be fetch start or fetch start target. And then we send it. And on request handler, all of these are in here in events. So let me close all. And we can, do you want to drill right now, or do you want to have the overview of here and then drill?
Let's do the overview and then drill down.
Okay. So yeah, we as we discussed earlier, is like we try to make the functions in events and others like the pure functions so that they don't keep any state. So that's why these handlers still have some logic in here and there. But I tried to move everything I could to the events TS page file. Then we have on request fail. Yeah, it's request, response. If it's an error like this, we still want to send the fetch end event. And that's because we are doing that in the other connector. So we just return and let we are still going to get the on response event, and then we can send the status and such. But if it's something different, like we've had a network error or disconnection or something like that, that's in those cases when we want to process that event. So if it's a navigation and we fail, then we call the rejection handler for the promise. And if we don't have an event, so not having an event means that we don't have the DOM ready yet. That's for convention. So if we don't have the event, then what we do is queue up exactly the same call that we received. So it's like pending request push on request fail, and we bind with this and the payload that we had, and then we just return, and we'll get processed later in the collect method.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if we spend a little more time on these, I think we could maybe push a little bit more of this down. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily worth it at this point, but I think ideally we'd be in the place where mostly these are just thin wrappers that are just grabbing the state objects and passing them down.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not.
I know we talked about the pending
The
request.
idea is just so we're not splitting. We don't want to have too much logic at this level.
Yeah. Problem is that if we wanted to pass the pending request, then we need to pass also the status of the DOM and things like that. So it started to become a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So I
think this is a fine compromise for now.
Okay.
But,
I mean,
it's sort of the point of diminishing returns. I get it.
Sorry?
You've hit the point of diminishing returns.
Mm-hmm. Probably. Yes. So yeah, I tried, but I couldn't find a way. And so yeah, but I mean, as always, everything can be improved. Mm-hmm. But yeah, ideally, it's like on response would be everything in events, and I didn't have to worry about. But yeah, it's like being tied to having the DOM ready or not. That's the biggest problem that we have here. I mean, we could change the approach and have the event, and then once we have the DOM, find the element. But we'll have to do it in another place, and I don't know if that's going to give us. I mean, I don't know what point that's going to improve the code.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. On response, we get the resource that we are downloading, if it's the target, and then the status code. If it's a redirect, then we will get yet another response. So we just return and make it and yeah, wait for the next one. If it's not a redirect, then we create the event with the onResponse handler that we are going to see later. Again, if there is no event, that means that the DOM is yet not ready. And so we queue it up for later process. If we have it, then name, payload, name is going to be fetchend HTML or fetchend star. If it's the target, then we change the name to fetchend HTML. We create the original document for the payload of the target, and then we emit the event. And if there was someone waiting for the target to be ready, then we fulfill that promise. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Then time to dig into the events. On request handler, this is the one that we've seen that is when the browser is going to make a request. So it's pretty easy. We just have the name of the event, and then the payload, which is just the URL that we are requesting. Request fail handler, it's more or less similar. If we don't have the DOM, then we return and we will be processed later. We try to get the element from the response. If there has been any hops, any redirects, Puppeteer has like the redirect chain. So we just map it and it's not an array, which is what we have in the other connectors. It's a bit more complex, but I mean, we only need the URL, so we just do a map. We create the event, and we just return it, like the name and payload. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, still finishing reading. Just a second.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's like you look very concentrated. So. Okay, and now the.
Yep. Carry on.
On response handler. Same drill as before. If the DOM is not ready and it's not the target, we return null. If we can continue the processing, we create a payload, which is coming from this one, which is a fun piece of code that is going to do getting all the body and raw bytes and all of that. Then we have this magic in here for the target, which we assume that anything that has the media type or the content type, HTML, XML, or unknown coming from the browser, we are going to say that it's HTML, and then we are going to send the event.
Yep, and that's consistent with how the other connectors have worked.
Yep.
I still think there's a bit for us to visit there in the future, but right now I keep it consistent.
Yeah. Okay, this is create fetch and payload. This is similar to the request fail, at least at the beginning. We get the URL that we've downloaded, we get the redirects, we see if there's been a like the original URL or not. We try to get the element from the response, like doing the matches and all of that. And then we have the fetching is a payload is a bit more complex. It has the body, car set, the headers, hooks, media type, status code, and all of that. And body actually has the string, the raw content, and the raw response. So content, as you can see, is a buffer, and the response, the raw response, is basically the bytes that are coming over the wire. When they are compressed, for example, if they are compressed, we are going to get those bytes as they come. And the way that we do that with Puppeteer or with the Chrome debugging protocol, we don't have access to those. So that's why it's a promise, because we are going to request that same URL using right now the request library with the same headers that the original request was done. So it might be or might not be the same one. It should be like the same thing in 99% of the cases. Biggest problem will be if there is like some type of authentication. We are not doing anything with cookies. We could probably do something in there, but so far we haven't got any report, but maybe that's something that we should look into the future into.
Yeah, we also don't have a lot of hints that depend on this. I mean, HTTP compression is one of the few, right?
Yes, HTTP compression. Then there is there is something that NoBomb does, or at least the debugging protocol, what it does is it just removes the bomb character when you get the string.
Oh, the bomb, yeah.
Yeah, out of the box. So we actually need to request that if we really want to have that. But I think that those
that even impacts what we'd consider the raw content versus the raw response, and we're not overriding that here.
No, but I'm trying to remember what we do in that one. I think that we are manually downloading it.
In that hint?
Yeah, in that hint, we might be using fetch content.
Yeah, that hint may be making its own fetch call. And I mean, even the compression hint also makes, I guess it uses raw response, but doesn't it also make additional requests with modified headers in order to test different compression algorithms?
Yep, it does.
And so in both those cases, I almost wonder if we're getting to the point where those hints are kind of special case enough and still need to make additional requests that maybe at some point we just phase out raw response on the internal request. And if a hint needs it, let them explicitly go off and request that. So we're not incurring this overhead in the general case where we may not be using it.
Well, it's actually a promise that is only called, I mean, it only gets called once. If not, it does not. So.
Oh, right. Only if you try to access it, right?
Yeah, it's lazy loaded.
So we're not incurring the overhead unless you try to use it.
No, we only do it even if there are multiple hints that are accessing that property. The request is only done once. But
okay.
It's lazy. So
that works then. Never mind, not an issue.
Okay. So yeah. Response text, response buffer, Puppeteer.
The only other comment I was going to make there, though, is that this is a property that I know not all of our connectors can support either.
Yeah, the browser extension can't.
The browser extension can't. And it's technically the only one that can't. It doesn't have access to any API that's going to get at the raw bytes.
Yeah. At the same time, it's like the browser extension is still not held up to the same test suite as the other ones. So,
Yeah.
But
okay.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, we are not also
we don't run those particular hints in that context either. So
yeah, we should look into having a more lightweight version of the compression one for the browser extension.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carry on.
Get content type data. That's a util that we have that returns the car set, media type. We fill all the data, and that's fine. If we have an issue, because all of these are promises with text and buffer, we return like an empty string and an empty buffer. Yeah, trying to think if there is something else in here. I don't think so. Nope. Get favicon. So you've seen that if we are in headless mode, headless doesn't download the favicon. So what we do is we query the DOM to see if it's included somewhere. And if not, we are going to do a request to favicon.ico, which is the standard one. And then we do the fetch content from the connector and generate the fetch and image event and emit it directly. Then get element from response, have the redirect chain, and then we find the first URL that was used because that's the one that is going to be in the DOM, and then we look into the DOM for that with the get element by URL. This is a util coming from hint utils that we are using in other places of the project. And I think that with that we've covered everything.
Yeah, I might add a comment for that resolution of the request URL, just explaining that, yeah, it's the first one that would have been specified in the DOM.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Since that's a good why that's happening. Yeah, I'd say it'll be the one that was originally specified in the DOM.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then I think the next part will be utils test helpers. Connectors will be the one. So with this, we are replacing connector Chrome with connector Puppeteer. So this will be the biggest change that we have. And actually, probably this one will be better to see in from the GitHub from here. Close this one, connector Puppeteer. Only 47 files changed. So initially we had all the IDs and all the constructors and we were using them, but we have a problem with our CI system where in Azure Pipelines, the version of Chrome installed in Windows is pretty old. I think it's right now is 71 and Puppeteer doesn't play nicely with it. So what we've decided to do to unblock this PR is to just don't test on Windows on CI. So that's why we need to decide when to add it or not.
Yeah, and then we have the issue, or will have the issue open to re-enable that.
Yeah, I should probably open an issue with that. Can you take a note for that?
Yep.
Okay. So, and this was really interesting and kept me up until very late yesterday. It's like there was this test here, the no disallowed headers, that was failing with timeouts. And sometimes it was like 4 timeouts, and it was failing only with JS DOM, which was like, I haven't touched anything with JS DOM. It's like, why is this failing? And it seems like the order of the IDs matter in this case. And before we had Chrome at the beginning, but what I had yesterday, I was doing a push instead of unshift. So I was adding it at the end instead of the beginning. And that, yeah, and that had some overhead, and it was making JS DOM to time out. So I put a nice comment in here. So yeah, that was interesting to find out what was going on. Any questions about this one? Okay. Hint runner. We need to run the tasks when running our test suite. I also added the wait until option before with you. This is changes from before. This was an enum.
Interesting. So I was just noticing the project references. You scrolled away from it, but
references.
It updated it in that line, although we have a script that generates that, and I was expecting it to end up alphabetical.
I did it manually probably when I did.
So that'll probably get overridden, or it'll turn into a diff the next time somebody writes this, runs the script. So you may want to move that down after connector local.
What's it's no the scripts update. It's not okay. So this scripts update is yeah, utils test helpers. Seems like it has been modified. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
No. Okay. Probably we'll have to do like 3 different commits for this.
You could just spot fix it in a follow-up if you want. I mean,
yeah, it's like I have a really nice history commit in here. I don't want to mess it at the last minute.
All right.
Yep. This is a fix I had to do. Is like when I changed from a number enum to a string enum, this was actually not true anymore. So it's like I have to, this returns an empty string. So if there is an empty string, I actually have to throw an error. And yeah, that's pretty much about everything. No, I don't even know where this is coming from. I get element by your. Yeah, this is. I think this is something with when I was fixing other tests and things like that, and tests that I don't know how they were passing before.
Okay.
Passing so.
Yeah, because I know we have some specifically designed invalid URLs in the tests.
Yeah, but that's like HTTP test fail.
Mm-hmm.
Not this one. This was empty, and I don't know how it was passing before. So yeah, and then the other is like adding a bit more tests. Connector Puppeteer arrives here. Package.json. Yep. So that's pretty much all the PR.
Okay. Good. We've got all tests passing now. So
yeah, we'll see, because the last time I did a refactor, everything broke. So with this
you're gun shy now.
Yes. No, now it's like getting the moment I finally managed to have the debug output, it took me like 30 seconds to spot the issue, but I had to modify. We need to find a better way to get debug output running ABA directly, because the issue that I had, it was only happening on running the test suite, not like running individual test files. So I had to modify the debug to actually be enabled by default in the TS file, and then passing a few extra parameters. So yeah, we should probably have better debugging instructions.
Yeah, well, especially when running the test, yeah, because I mean, those debugs don't, if you're running by default and it's running in parallel, then the debug statements aren't associated with the tests that actually generated them.
Yeah, but still, it's like having that debug output makes me, because I had all the logs, so I could kind of guess what was going on with each thread.
Okay.
And then, I mean, the thing that...
So you didn't have to throw it into serial mode in order to figure it out?
No. I mean, if it was in serial mode, that was going to pass, because...
it only reprod running in parallel, because
yes,
you'd state bleeding.
It was running in parallel and running several files at the same time. It's like we had test and test HTTPS. So gotcha. Yeah, it's like the thing that made me realize that I wasn't passing the detach option was that I had the debug comments saying like starting Puppeteer in regular mode. And I was like, oh, I forgot that detach. And that was because I had a couple any's in the options instead of having those types.
Fun.
Yep.
I was going to say, so in general then, do you feel there, especially around that process lifecycle bit, do you feel there are any new tests that you could bring into the suite to help make sure we don't break that? Because that's the big new piece versus what you had in Connector Chrome, and we don't have test coverage, we don't have explicit test coverage around it. You know, what you just described was sort of an implicit test coverage, but
yeah, we could check when we are calling launch, we could validate the options in that case, that they have the different and the defaults are working.
Yeah, and not something that has to be run on every test. I just mean literally set up a new test case or two.
Yeah, no. I was thinking in a new file in the connector Puppeteer test folder.
Yeah,
and have that and validate.
Because yeah, that's complex.
That won't be in the launch.
I think it'd be worth, especially because I think if what you just demonstrated is if we do break it, it's not necessarily easy to identify what we did wrong.
Well, now it will be more easy because now we have types. Before it wasn't possible. So I had, let me show you. But yeah, I should have those. But I think it was in start detach. Yeah, in here I had an any. And in start browser I had another any. And yeah, I don't even know in this one I had. No, in this one I have like launch options, but the other ones were like any's, something like that. And yeah, so it's like it wasn't complaining that the detach wasn't in there. So I had like, I had launch options in here. And then, start browser was any. And it wasn't picking that the detach wasn't in part of the Puppeteer launch options. So that was the problem. And as soon as I add it, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Types.
Yep, types.
Yep.
Helpful and painful at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's like, they are. I mean, I don't think what can be more painful than trying to debug a race condition for a couple of days. So
yeah.
So yeah, I'll add then the test for that.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I need to figure out how to do that. Okay. Anything else?
No, I think that covers it for now.
Okay.
It's looking good. I'm excited to get this merged.
Yes, me too.
You've been working on it a while.
Yes, way too long. I mean, this was like, I can get this done in a week, and it's been a month.
Cool.
Okay, well, see ya.
Later.
Bye.